Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today I am here with the last installment of my alphabetical series that I've been doing on my channel. So if you haven't been catching my last couple of videos, I started 3 days ago a series where I go through all of my favorite eyeshadows from A to Z. So I have done majority of the alphabet so far, but we do have the last couple of letters today, which, let me check, we're going to start off with T and go all the way to Z. That is what I'm going to go through today. Again, it's going to be the last video in this installment. I did mention in my introduction that if you want to see me do a swatch party of all of the shadows that are in this, like featured in this video, swatch them all out next to each other so you can see kind of what they all look like and what the color story is, and let me know and I'm happy to do that. Otherwise, I have been sharing the kind of color stories on my hands throughout the series as well. But I'm going to jump straight into it and start off with T. But before I do so, if you're new here, please consider subscribing. I would love to have you in the family. Let's jump into the video. So as always, I'm going to start off with the runner-ups if I have any. And for T, we do have one runner-up. And this one is a massive favorite in the indie eyeshadow community, in the single eyeshadow community, and in the Terra Moons community. And that is this shadow right here called the Cosmos. So this is a beautiful, beautiful eyeshadow. It's a very shifty one. As you can see, it has more of a kind of sky blue base that has maybe like a cornflower blue base. I'm really bad with my blues, but it's a blue base. It's a bright blue base. And straight on, or the main shift running through it, is pink, but it also goes into turquoise, to a warm green, to a gold, to a purple, and it just has so many different shifts. It is very interesting because it goes from that really vibrant reddish pink and straight into like a green shift, straight into like that turquoise, into blue, which kind of further enhances the base. It's a very, very pretty shadow, and it's also very versatile because you can pair it with more kind of neutral tones and make it a bit more wearable. You can pair it with so many different colors, like you can pair it with blue, pinks, greens, like probably oranges. You can pair it with any color really, and with, depending on what you pair it with or what you put underneath it or just kind of pair it with, you're going to get different types of looks. It's again a very versatile shadow, and I love this one a lot. The only reason why I'm not putting it as my favorite is because I have been starting to go for more kind of subtle shift shadows recently, and not as many colorful shades, which, you know, I still do love a colorful look, but I don't know. I just really have been loving the subtlety of shadows recently, like shadows that are beautiful kind of everyday shadows, but just like twisted and turned up to 100, if that makes sense. So this is a beautiful shadow, but I like the one that won for T a tiny bit more, so let me share that shade. And that is this shadow right here, which comes from Divina, and this shade is called Tucana. So this is what I mean. It's like a very kind of subtle shade, as you might be able to see. In the camera right now, you might think it's a very pink shade, but it actually has quite a warm side to it too. Again, it has like a pink shift straight on, but it also goes into like a peachy pink, into a gold, and into like a green, slight green shift at a very harsh angle. And all of that is topped on top of a warm kind of, I don't know, camel base. It is a really stunning everyday shadow, and these are the type of shadows that I like going for on the daily because they're just very interesting. They aren't like too out there, but it's definitely going to make you stick out from other people. Someone's going to look at your eyes and be like mesmerized about how it shifts, how it looks different in every lighting. And that's what I love about makeup. I just love, I mean, I would love staring at it all day, like staring at myself, not staring at myself, but staring at my eyeshadow. I would love if I had an opportunity. I'm almost envious of some people who get to stare at my eye looks every day, just because I love my duochromes and my multichromes, and I just wish I could have more opportunity to look at them myself. But that's like a whole rant that has nothing to do really with this shadow. More than that, this is like the type of everyday shadow that I like to go for. And again, I don't know if you can pick up any of the shifts on my hand right now, but otherwise, again, I would have inserted the footage so you can appreciate how beautiful this shadow is. So we are actually at our last round of runner-ups, because the remaining shadows after this is just the standalone shadow. So we have you next, and we have 2 runner-ups for you. The first one is this shadow right here, which comes from Terra Moons, and this is the shade Ultraviolet. So as you can see, this one has like a purple base. It's more of a, I don't know, I feel like it's a warm purple, but I'm so bad at describing them. I think it's a warm purple, not like super warm, but I think it's warm. It's a warm purple base with a pink shift right through, like straight on, that goes into, again, like a green and a turquoise shift. It is really interesting. It has, again, I think, yeah, it does have like that warmer base, but it does have a cooler shift running through it, which makes it quite interesting. And the pink shift that's in it is a little bit warmer, so it does have that kind of warm and cool thing going on all at once, which is something that I absolutely adore in shadows. I also think this is a very unique purple, and I'm not the biggest fan of like purple all the time, but this one is something different because it has a very, again, unique undertoned purple, like the base color of it. And it does have a lot of other shades going on too, so it's not like overly predominantly purple. It is like a little bit of purple there, but I mean, it's definitely a purple shadow, but it's just an interesting purple. That's what I'm getting at. So it's one that I really do adore, and I was really close to letting this one win. This is actually, I was going to say this is the second runner-up, but the next one runner-up I have is also an amazing shadow. This is actually a really highly scored letter. You wouldn't think that you have too many letters with, or eyeshadow starting with that letter, and I don't think I have too many either, but the ones I have some bangers in them. So yeah, this is the next shadow, and again, unfortunately this one couldn't win, but it's a really good shadow. And it's the same thing with the next shadow. It's a bigger pan, so you might know which brand this is already, but this one comes from JD Glow, and this is the shade Unexpected. This is a cult favorite for so many people. Like, people absolutely adore the shade, and so do I. It has brown base with a kind of green shift straight on, but it's not too vibrant. This is quite a wearable shade, even though it's very shifty and very stunning. It is super wet looking. It is super sparkly. And again, it has that kind of green shift straight on, so like a warmer shift straight on going into a cooler, like a bluish purple shift, but again, a bit more toned down. So again, it has, I don't know, it's just something about it. It says Unexpected. That's kind of sums the shadow up. It's a very unexpected shadow, and it's just so wearable, so beautiful. It's like a perfect everyday shade. And again, it's so hard because I love this shadow so much, and I wish it could win. And now I'm kind of second guessing myself, but yeah, it's a beautiful shadow. So just know that this is one that is very highly ranked in my collection. I absolutely love this shadow, and again, so many people do. I know JD Glow have had lots of drama. I haven't bought them from them. I only purchased from them once, which is when I picked up this shadow. But if you can pass this is a beautiful shadow, and if you have this in your collection, please go ahead and reach for it, because it is so incredible, and I'm very, very grateful to have it in my collection. But let's move on to the actual winner for you. So the actual winner for you is this shadow right here, and this is the shade Unexplainable from Shine by SD. This is a really, really famous shadow from them. A lot of people love it. It's one of their Dynasty Series 2, and as you can see, this one has a very vibrant pink base. You can see it right at that angle, I believe, and then straight on it has a very vibrant kind of fiery gold shift going on. I will also insert the swatches so you can see it better, but it has, again, that fiery orange shift, or kind of yellow shift straight on, going into more of a kind of turquoise, into a blue, and then into a purple, leading into that super vibrant pink. I absolutely love these type of shadows that has that pink and gold kind of shift, but also that rainbow aspect to it, because it does, you know, at different angles. Actually looking at it now, it shows kind of green at different angles too. I didn't really see green in it originally. I just saw that warm yellow to kind of turquoise blue. But looking at it at a different angle, you can definitely see almost like a grass green. So you can almost see every single kind of part of the rainbow in this shadow. The only thing that is really missing is red, I think. So it's a beautiful shadow. It's super dimensional. This is a swatch of it on my hand, and you can hopefully see already there how shifted this is, even though you definitely can't see all of the shift, but you would be able to see them better in the overhead or overview kind of B footage. But yeah, it's a beautiful shadow. It's very different from Tucana, but I love them both. So that is my favorite shadow for you. For V, we have another similar type of shadow. It's very similar to the first shadow I showed you. And this is the shade Vermilion from Cleona. As you can see, this one has quite a lot of hues. Hopefully you can see that in the pan at least. This one has like a tan base with a pink shift straight on, as you might be able to see there. And then it goes into kind of like an orange, into a gold, into a green, or like a yellow into a green. It's a super beautiful shadow. Again, it's quite similar to Tucana. I mean, maybe on camera you can see there how similar they look, but to me, they are still different. I would say that Vermilion is the more kind of shifty sister to Tucana, but it's also more smooth, so it's not as sparkly. Because Tucana, again, it does shift quite similar. I would say that the pink in Vermilion is maybe a little bit more kind of cool toned, and then Vermilion also goes into that green shift, which Tucana doesn't really have. It does have a little bit of green, like antique kind of green at a harsh angle, but Vermilion definitely goes into like a vibrant green at a harsh angle. So that is that shade there, and that is my favorite for V. I have loved this shadow for a long time, and I knew that I loved this one even before I looked at my list. So I'm happy that it kind of showed through, and this one won because, again, it is an absolute favorite in my collection. We have 2 more shadows to go, and we have W next. So for W, I don't have too many shadows, but the one that won through is this shadow right here, and this is Winter Star from Terra Moons. So again, this is an iridescent, but this one has more of a base than some of that iridescent that I've shown you. It has like a gray base, and then straight on it has almost true green sparkle, as well as some bluish purple sparkles. It's really stunning and very, very unique. It does have that kind of green shift going into a blue, into a violet, almost like an ultraviolet shade, all with that kind of slight gray base. It's a very flaky, sparkly shadow too. It takes a little bit of work to get this one to kind of smooth out, because it is one of Terra Moon's more flaky formulas, which can be difficult to work with, but I absolutely love because they do created such a beautiful effect. So looking at the shadow right there, you can hopefully see first of all how sparkly it is compared to some of the other shades, and hopefully you can also see some of that kind of green shift, maybe even going into a bit of the blue or purple. I'm not sure if you can see it there, but it is such a stunning shadow, and I feel like it looks different in every single lighting. When I've been looking at it, like kind of, you know, here it looks more, if I'm looking at this angle, it looks more blue, here it looks more green, more purple. And there was like times where I was like, oh, does it actually have green in it? Am I misremembering? But then I was like, oh, there it is. And that's, again, what I love about shadows, especially multichromes, because they look different and they surprise you. And this one is just stunning. I've worked on this one in my project 10 uses, and I use it as a topper shade and an aesthetic corner and all of that stuff. And I absolutely love my time with this shadow. So that is my favorite shadow for W. So we have a couple of shadows in palettes next. And the next shadow I'm going to go over quite quickly because we had X, and I think for X, I'm trying to look at my spreadsheet, but I can't see it now. I think for X, I only really had one type of shadow, and they all come from Pat McGrath palettes. So if you don't know, Pat McGrath has like the deepest shade in the palette, and it's always called Extreme something. And the palette that I went with is my Utopian Dream, and the shadow that I'm going to pick is the shade Extreme, what is it called? I already forgot. It's called Extreme Plum Noir. There you go. They always have funny names, don't they? But let me swatch the shadow out and I'll just show you what it looks like. Again, it is the only matte in this series because I don't think I have any shimmer starting with X. I think, again, the only shades that I have are the mattes from these palettes. And there you have the shade. As you can see, it's like a warm brown, but it has that kind of soft undertone that I love. I love these type of shades, and I love it because it's deep and you can create some deepness with it, but you can also sheer it out and put it in your crease. So it's versatile in that sense, and it's just not too deep, which is something that I'm not liking at the moment. So yeah, this is the favorite shadow for X. Nothing, again, too exciting. It is that shade right there. I'm going to breeze over it because for me, again, mattes aren't very exciting, so I'm going to move on to the next shadow very rapidly and share with you what is the favorite for why. And my favorite shadow for why also comes from a palette, and it comes from this palette right here, which is a Natasha Nona palette, and this is the Sendo palette. So this shadow really isn't like it would definitely be outbeaten by a lot of runner-ups, because it's not like the most sparkly shadow. However, for why I was very limited, so the shade that I decided to go with is the shade Yama right here. So it's a beautiful kind of warm, like a warm brown base with a bit of a green to purple kind of shimmer running through it. And that is the shade right there. I will go ahead and show you the swatch. Again, it's nothing compared to these beautiful shades up here, but again, very limited options for why, and this is the one that I decided to go with. I'm going to breeze over it again because it's not the most exciting shade for me. It is pretty. When I did my Big Fat Eyeshadow project with this palette, which was actually the month of June, so very recently, I wore Yama, I think, in every single look that I made because it's just such a beautiful shade from this palette. So I did enjoy my time with it, but just swatching it out next to these other shades, it just makes me realize how lackluster some of the more mainstream shimmers are, and how happy I am to have much indie shimmers in my collection. So we come to the very final shadow in this series, and that is this shadow right here, which starts with Z, and this is the shade Sorsa from Glam Shop. This right here is a beautiful shadow. It has a grape plum base with a really kind of strong greeny gold shift straight on, and then it goes into more of a kind of bluish shift at an angle. It is super stunning and super, super pretty. It's not as well performing as it used to. I think it's dried out a little bit. It's more sheer, but with a glitter glue, I'm sure this will show up way more. But I just love the tones of this. I love, again, the kind of green shift throughout shadows, especially when they have a contrasting base, which this one does. And even though I've had this one in my collection for a long time, it is a really stunning shadow. It's one that I really still think very fondly of. Of course, for Z, I wasn't going to have too many options, but I still feel like I have a decent amount. But this one was going to win, and it is a beautiful shadow. Hopefully you can see it down here, how it's swatched up. But you can also probably see that it's a bit sheerer than some of the other shades, but it's still very beautiful nonetheless. And that is going to be the final shadow for Z. So yes, there we have it. Those are the final shadows. We have T, U, V, W, X, Y, and Z. So there are the very final set of shadows. This one was definitely interesting, the last round, because some categories I didn't really have many shadows at all. And it's funny because, you know, for example, with you, I had this shade Unexpected, which is, Unexplainable. But I also absolutely loved Unexpected and, what was the other shadow? Ultraviolet from Terra Moons. Those shadows I absolutely love, and it's funny because those two would have easily beaten out these two, for example. But that's why I thought this series was fun, just to look at each kind of shadow by name and kind of battle them out. And it's just a new way of introducing new shadows to you guys. You know, maybe some of these shadows I haven't introduced in other videos, but I absolutely adore them nonetheless. So I wanted to be a bit creative and create a video like this. So I really hope you enjoy this series. I have absolutely loved it. Obviously it's been super fun for me because I get to swatch out loads of eyeshadows and compare them and stare at the shifts and stare at the sparkles. So it's been really fun. But also to have a look into my collection, I found some kind of new discovered favorites. I've also got to compare loads of shadows, which is always fun. So yeah, I've enjoyed this whole process. It took a while for me to decide these shadows. I've been procrastinating in series. I've been wanting to do it for ages. But I've been procrastinating because I knew it was going to be so hard kind of choosing a favorite. Some categories, some letters were so difficult, and it kind of felt like choosing a favorite child. But I did ultimately have very fun creating this series. But again, I'm going to wrap up the video here. Please go ahead and give it a thumbs up if you did like it. Let me know if you have watched those series, which shadow is your favorite, and also in your collection, what shadow do you like the most? So yeah, I hope you guys are having an amazing day wherever you are, and I will catch you in my next one. Bye guys.